Hi everybody and welcome to Simon on the Sofa. Yay! One day I might get bored of saying that. I was like, yeah, I'm going to say Simon something else. Simon, hey. I haven't done many hangouts for a while because I've been in a bit of a creative process. But Jeff contacted me, wonderful Jeff Brown, who, thank you for any live viewers that are joining us tonight, has agreed to sit as the second encounter. And if you haven't already digested the first encounter that we recorded this same date, exactly the same date and time, well, not exactly necessarily, but last year, then please go back and watch that one, or just search around and check out some of Jeff Brown's stuff. You're going to meet him tonight live if it's the first time that you've come across this wonderful man, and we're going to be talking about a new book called The Uncommon Bond, and also we're just going to show up like we do on the sofa and see where the conversation takes us. It's going to be around real relationships, authentic relationships, conscious relationships for sure, love, and where we are as in humanity and how we can hopefully, experience something more real or something uncommon even. So welcome, Jeff.
Thank you, Simon. It's a pleasure to be with you. It's our 1 year anniversary, you and I.
It is indeed our 1 year anniversary.
Yeah.
I like that.
And we're getting along pretty good, aren't we, in our relationship? It's our second attempt at interfacing. Successful the first time. We'll see what happens this time.
Exactly. So, I was having a shower, and I know that I got the times muddled up with you again, and I was thinking, I don't have anything to say to Jeff. I know that we could just show up and go with anything. So I'd love you just to, if you'd love to check in with where you're at like we did last time, and just if you want to go straight into whatever's on your mind and what you feel that the world is ready for us to dive into tonight, and just, rock and roll.
Well, I'm working on finishing this book called An Uncommon Bond that is going to be printed and published soon, in mid-April, I think, and unless there's some glitches. I've worked on this book for, I think, a couple hundred lifetimes, but more literally in the last 4 years off and on. And I had a love experience in 1998 that was profound, rocked my world, cracked me open in ways that my armored male consciousness could not possibly have imagined was possible, and introduced me really to a horizontal portal in terms of spiritual expansion. I was mostly oriented towards something vertical and something lone wolf warrior experiential, and really had never considered the possibility that something that could happen between two hearts could crack me open to an even vaster experience of unity consciousness than what I'd experienced in my isolation and on the meditation cushion and in breath work and in all of that. And that's what happened. I had an experience of not only a portal to divinity, but it almost felt like we were co-creating galaxies in the heart of this love experience. So it fell apart as it was meant to, and of course now I can look back on that and it was perfect, but I certainly didn't feel that way before I'd gone through a process around it. And then I wrote my thesis about something called uncommon bonds. It just so happened that right at the tail end of the dynamic, I was doing my master's in Saybrook in California, and there was a conference that we had to attend, these conferences, and there was something being taught by a brilliant academic named Jean Ochterberg called Uncommon Bonds, something she defined, and I read the description of it, and I felt like somebody finally understood what I had experienced. And so I ended up writing my master's thesis with her, and I was so inspired to write about the topic that I wrote a perfectly constructed, at least a master's thesis that didn't require any edits afterwards in 31 hours. It was 100 and something pages. I was just on fire with this subject, and then ultimately was going to do PhD on this topic, because I think constructing relational models of consciousness is the next and most important step we can take on this planet. I think it may save the planet. I think if we keep operating on this idea that you experience your highest vibration in your isolation in this patriarchal vertical framework, I think that that's almost a recipe for narcissism on some level. And I think move us in the direction of horizontal model is the step we have to take. So I was going to do that, and I wanted so much to do that, but my call to write for the world, for people, to write Soulshaping was stronger, and so I wrote it, but reluctantly, because I wanted to do graduate work in this area, and I wanted to write a love story, and so it stayed with me, and I made notes and paid dozens of pages of notes and common words and reframes, but I couldn't get to it, and then finally it got me. In 2011 it started, and then this book was it was a hard book to edit but an easy book to write, because I have so much to say about this topic, and it's done as a novel. It's done. I was going to write it as a non-fiction objective book, but I've written it as a story through the male lens. The male's character's name is Lowen, the woman, her name is Sarah, and they have an uncommon bond experience. They meet each other. They've known each other forever. They ecstasy, agony, all of those things. And really, in the opening of the heart and in the opening of the shadow that emerges in the connection, the connection is like a portal to the collective. I mean, I think that's what's happening for all of us that open deeply. We start feeling things that are rooted in our psyche and maybe rooted in past lives, but also rooted in the collective unresolved. And so to the extent that we can clean up what happens between you and I, we're cleaning up something much vaster and much bigger. And so the story just takes you through this dude's, opening, resisting because his armor is tight, and finally the heart opens, and then the poor schmuck gets whacked right in the heart of the deep opening. And then he has to figure out what to do with that, go back to closeness or find a way to take that learning or that lesson and evolve and love it forward somewhere in his life. And that's what happens. Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Journey.
Yeah.
It's a real intense book. It's like, I call it karmic boot camp. I mean, it's not for the faint of heart. It's not a new agey, floaty version of spirituality. It covers all of it. I mean, ecstasy and agony and all the work that you have to do to sustain that level of depthful connection in this unconscious world. I mean, not too many of us get off scot-free. So when you open that deeply, the shadow's coming, and the question is, what are you willing to do with that? Openings are easy. It's sustainable openings that are difficult, right?
Yes, sustainable openings, and like you just said, keeping in that open space, because the opening is almost, it's never ending, is it? I don't know what your experience has been. You can let's talk about that, but like this idea of consciously opening or opening the heart, or like you beautifully said, dropping down that armor that we've built up through the patriarchy and all these other beliefs and ways that we've shown up as men, individuals in relationship from that separate place. So I don't know if we know how to even stay open, do we, at the moment? What do you feel?
No, I think it's still a scary survivalist world. And I remember in my personal journey in this uncommon bond, there was this moment when I opened so deeply and I felt like this was impossible to sustain. It was so subtle, so fragile in a way, so nuanced, and so clear that I felt immediately like the most I could handle in the world at this stage of development, where the world is still a scary place vibrationally in many ways, was a brief period of time before having to, and I think that's what happened in my experience, and that's what happens in the book, that it really is, you have to be egoically so well developed, you have to have a certain kind of lifestyle that's not caught in the heart of crazy traffic, urban madness. I mean, I almost feel like you need to be on a mountaintop somewhere in order to be able to stay in that openness to some extent, because it's so difficult. And as for the first comment you made, I think this is really an important comment. This is why I don't believe in realized masters. I don't believe anyone who tells me they're enlightened. I think it's all a big lie. Because my experience has been that unity consciousness is a relative experience. So what I called a profound opening after a Stangroff holotropic breath work 15 years ago was nothing compared to the depth of opening I had in a love encounter. So, and I saw then in that opening that there were so many other levels of opening available to my consciousness. Doesn't mean I was ready or the world was ready for it, but So I think that anyone who tells you they're realized versus realizing is lying to you, because we're not at a stage of development in the collective where we can get to that stage, hold that open, and then continue to move outward like that. It feels to me unlimited, or if it's limited, nobody's glimpsed the limit yet, you know. And in a way, I think that's a beautiful thing. Like and I come back to the belief that relational models, that we're not just here together to keep each other company, we're here together to show each other God, right? So
Beautiful.
For me, the idea is we work dynamic and we construct and explore relational models of consciousness so that we can begin to understand what's possible for humanity. Not what's possible for the dude alone in the meditation cave. He doesn't even have any idea how far he can go if he opens his heart to the feminine. I mean, he's caught in this patriarchal notion of spirit, and so was I. All the heart-centered feminine all seemed silly and annoying and nagging, and until I had an experience and understood how courageous that open heart path was, and that was the path. Wherever I went in my mind was never anything compared to wherever I went in the opening of the heart. So I think it's an exciting time to begin to talk about, what is a soulmate experience? What is an uncommon bond? What is a twin flame? And what are the limits and unlimited nature of possibility if we can keep sustaining that opening and going a little farther each time? I think that's the path.
Yeah, that's lovely, and I do want to go back. The thing that's sticking on my head. Well, that's all there. There's so much. We're going to dive. I'd love to dive. We dive into the feminine tonight and what that really means. And you mentioned again, because I think sometimes even the concept of twin flame and what's the other one you said as well, soulmate. There's also, that's a little bit, sometimes I get the vibe sometimes that's a little bit like the concept of enlightenment as well, where everyone's just throwing around twin flame and oh, I'm a soulmate, it's my soulmate, and I'm not really grasping what that, what it even means to contemplate what a soul really is, etc. So, and I just want to skirt back to say about the enlightenment as well, because I remember when I read Jack Cornfield's book, After the Ecstasy, the Laundry. I don't know if you picked that one up, come across that one. And I think what I took out of that on my own experience is that one of the key messages I took from that is that enlightenment is not some end place to obtain. If anything, enlightenment is literally just the beginning. It's just an opening in itself. It's like an opening that is a bit like what you're saying, another opening, just another opening, and then that brings, which you said at the beginning of the conversation, what now? What work needs to be done? How do I maintain this? What challenges am I going to experience now that I'm out there open? And then what I'm feeling as I'm saying that, I'm going, and then if we move that goes perfectly into the feminine, this idea of opening the heart, opening to a woman, opening to the feminine energy, because again, I haven't seen many men along the path so far, and I'm including myself in that, even though I find myself to be maybe sometimes a little bit more open. I don't even know about a little bit more open, but seem to be more open than a lot of men I meet that are still so in that separate self of a woman is just this, they're not even seeing this woman as a supreme being. They don't even know the concept of what it means to actually look in the eyes of another being and just honor them as God, as a supreme being, as the divine. So it's, let's throw that in the mix, and I'd love you to, what you feel about whatever I said there.
Well, let me go back. First of all, I'm with you on that, but I had a very interesting experience with Jack Cornfield. I did a workshop called Insight and Opening many years ago at the Governor Dummer Academy, and I realized it was no accident it was called the Government Dummer Academy in Massachusetts, because I was trying to get dumber so that I could find my heart. And the workshop was called Insight and Opening. So, and I think they still do these. Jack has you just meditating and takes you through meditation process. And then Stan Groff, the great holotropic breathwork master, I mean, this guy is a master in that domain. You do hardcore breathwork with a partner witnessing you, blindfolded, listening to psychotropic crazy music, and really intensifying the breath and going places. Have you ever done a holotropic breathwork?
I've done breath work, yeah, but I've done it just with one-on-one with a yogi.
Gotcha. So this is I recommend this to everybody. And so I would sit at the beginning with all of the Westerners, caffeinated Westerners, worry mind Westerners, wondering how we possibly found 8 days out of our crazy lives to sit here in this madness, trying to become part of the environment and get out of the urban, whatever that was. And I'm looking around and everyone's like tense and tight and uptight, and it just feels like silly to me. Like, how are we going to get anywhere? We're so agitated, and there's so much anger we're holding, and pain and grief, and we're just sitting uptight in this chair, and it just feels like another torture chamber, like sitting in the car in traffic, like sitting at the desk. To me, it was the same thing. I didn't get very far in my consciousness. So then we do the Stan Groff thing, where we're doing this release, and I'm raging, and I'm hitting, and I'm throwing my mother off my back, and I'm discharging. I go outside and I sit in front of this field of bulrushes, and I'm completely present with the bulrushes. I am all bulrush, and it's like it was a very beginning preliminary experience of, if I wanted to come to a place that was meditative and to expand my experience of unity consciousness, it had to happen through my body. That head tripping in a mindfulness meditation, as much as I understood the focus was on watching my feelings float down the river, was the opposite direction. It was no different than Tolle telling me to witness my pain body across the room and to pretend I'm somehow now in a realized state. It all seems like a big lie. Like, detachment is a tool, it's not a life. I wanted an inclusive experience of going down into the body, down into the receptivity chamber in order to clear the debris and then come into a meditative state. And as a result of that experience, I experienced something called unity, a level of unity consciousness, far beyond my daily experience of unity consciousness, not because I sat with Jack at all and laughed at his stories and sat in the uptight cushion, but because I raged and hit and released on the mat with Stan Groff's holotropic model. So that was the foray, and then I did work with Al Lowen in this body-centered way. Again, kept having unity experiences when I opened. The only thing I hadn't had yet was the unity experience through relationship. And this is the great wisdom of the feminine, right? So the dudes, survivalist dudes, think they're all crazy. They're like, we're so polarized. We can't relate to them. They can't relate to us. The generation gap is gigantic, you know? And then if you can just, as a dude, let yourself have the experience of dropping the armor and letting your heart open in the presence of the divine feminine, your whole life changes. I wouldn't be a writer if I hadn't had that love experience, because the creativity that the writing is all about really comes from the same wellspring or source spring of feeling when my heart is open. If my body is closed, I can't write. If I open my heart and my body, I can write. So all of it seems to me to be moving, for me, in the direction of the wisdom of the divine feminine. And listen, you and I both know if they don't end up in charge soon, we're in trouble. I mean, the dudes are ruining this place, and yeah. I really get that it's not all the dudes, and I really get that the women aren't perfect, and I get that we've all been caught in this sociological trap together. But still, this patriarchal, narcissistic, individualistic perspective is destroying this earth, and the earthy, heart-centered, relational feminine, they are our only hope. They truly are. Yeah.
It's wow. There's so much there, and thank you. Just want to thank you for your passion, and for people listening. You know, just to, you know, there's a lot there that just thrown out there, and we're throwing in there. And if you're even new to any of this stuff, don't worry. Just the key is just to pick up on little nuances that might trigger or resonate with you, and just go with them, because what you're saying there is really. I did a talk just 2 days for the International Women's Day, just 2 days ago, wasn't it? Yeah, on Sunday, and you know, there's 20, 30 women in the room, and I did honouring the divine feminine, and just did a talk around just make, you know, a man's, not even a man's perspective. I mean, come from that place, just coming from, you know, I am a man, in whatever that means, and I was there doing the talk about, you know, just the beauty of a woman, and how to. I just did some eye-gazing connection exercises, and then just gave a little, you know, it's a very short talk, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and just gave a very, you know, little dive into just seeing themselves as already enough, already divine, already nothing needs fixing, you're whole. It's not about you becoming more successful or competing with men or anything like that. It's like you already that, I know I'm using the word again, but it's you're already that supreme being. You're already the goddess. You're already there. It's the, the conditioning and all this other male dominance that numbed you down and suppressed. And I said a funny thing. I was talking to one of the women in the break, and I said what you said. I was like, dudes, back down. It's okay. You come this far. You can step down. You've made a mess. It's all good. It's all good. But please let the women come in now and do their magic. Let them clean up. Let them do what they've been able to do in all this time anyway. And if anything, it's like, because it's not about just going, men are just, like you just said, hopeless, get them out the window. It's just, men, align yourself to this energy as well, so that union can happen, so that you can actually co-create this transformation, and we can actually make some huge waves on in the shift of humanity. That's how I'm buzzed up about it anyway, just by even thinking about that, setting an intention, making a decision to wake up and be even wanting to say on my mat in the morning, like you said, sitting there maybe in silence, but trying to just come into the body and constantly reprogram myself to make sure that even the woman I'm with at the moment, a magical woman, and I found myself a week or so ago, again, just falling into raising my voice, and just raising my voice just a little bit, right, just a little bit, and just forgetting for a moment the honoring that is required right now in across the field of when we see another being. We're seeing these beautiful, magnificent expressions of life, these noble guests, these complete. I love what your friend and our friend now, I've met him a few times, Philip Shepherd. That radical wholeness, that return back to wholeness through the body, which is what you're saying. And I really want you to talk a little bit more about that connection to the body, Jeff. And I know you're using the word unity and connecting to unity and unity consciousness, which is lovely, but maybe just dive into that a little bit more if you feel it's relevant, because people listening might just go, well, yeah, but what's unity consciousness, etc.
Well, it's like I've been struggling in my writing and in my inner work really to clarify an understanding of spirituality, something called spirituality, that's inclusive of the entirety of this human experience. So, I would sit before non-dualists who would talk about something called unity or non-duality, and they would have no energy coming off of their bodies. So this notion of non-duality that they're advocating for seemed very conveniently to remove the opening of the heart, the emotional body. Feelings are all an illusion. They bash the ego, they bash the body, they bash personal identification. So the real inclusive experience is some emptiness experience or floating off into some other. So basically, it's anything other than human. So this didn't work for me. So as my work makes more sense to me now, because I understand the relationship between the healing of the emotional body, for example, and the reopening of the heart, and my transformation, because I can now work through things and become a different human, but also as a function or a creation of spiritual maturation. What is the maturation on a spiritual level, if not, to some extent, the transformation of the ego in a healthier direction, not the bashing of the whole ego, but the becoming the healthy ego, the finding your path and purpose in a way that's grounded and sustainable and realistic. You don't think you're all that, but you think you're something special. And the healing of the emotional body. So if I don't heal my emotional body, how can I say that I'm having a present-centered experience if my consciousness and my cell structure is still gripped to unresolved early life trauma, for example? So for me, radical wholeness, and I think Philip would agree with me about this, is really an inclusive experience on every level. And what's been missing in this patriarchal ridiculousness, where the idea of success is defined as the unhealthy ego primarily, is what's missing is the development of the healthy ego and the opening of the heart as part of our definition of what it means to be a whole human, right? So often we see the schmuck becomes a success, and it's confusing because really so often the most sensitive ones, the late bloomers, the artists, all kinds of people doing all kinds of seemingly regular day-to-day things are far more evolved than those that society has deemed successful through a survivalist lens. And I think the big problem is we're still moving from survivalism as our defining principle. So you're successful if you survive effectively. That's what it means. You're successful if you can adapt your consciousness to deal with the challenges of this crazy world. An authenticity framework, which is more heart-centered and truth-centered, defines success according to finding your real path, embodying your wholeness, and looking back at the end of your life saying something like what Virginia Satir said, I did what I came here to do. Okay, this to me is success. And it can be a subtle path or a humble path or a gentle path or simply a holding the space for others with a heart open path. And, if we don't move in the direction of defining success in this way, we know we're ruined, really, because the other path, the accumulative path, is the destructive path. It's, when you're trying to build unhealthily in the ego, the last thing you're thinking about is your impact on humanity or on the planet. You don't care about it. But when you're thinking about sacred purpose being on fire in your soul, it's inherently relational. And my experience has been, I'd wake up, when I was doing trial, I would wake up in the morning feeling a little hateful. When I wake up now with the desire to write and honor my ultimate path and purpose, the last thing I want to do is hurt anybody, And really, the realization that this was my path came through the opening of the body. I would go over Al Lowen's breathing stool or do the holotropic breath work, and I would clear the debris that was blocking my clarity as to path, and then I would have a glimpse of the next step on my path come right through the channel in my open body. My mind is a tool, but my mind never told me anything about who I was in this life. You can't figure it out by thinking it through. Excessive analysis perpetuates emotional paralysis, and the emotional life lives in the body. It's not a talk therapy model. It's a body-centered psychotherapy approach.
Say that again. Repeat that one. Excessive, what did you say?
Excessive analysis perpetuates emotional paralysis. So if you want to be, you can be a head tripper all you want and numb out the feeling body and call yourself enlightened and talk like a flat-toned, disembodied non-dualist, but it's not real because you're not here. I mean, you've got to be in the body to be here. And this idea that spirituality exists outside of our humanness is the great travesty. Okay, it's the great because what it does, that splitting off of spirituality from humanness means that people who are suffering and been victimized and haven't yet forgiven people who've traumatized them cannot even claim that space without being called not spiritual. How ridiculous is that? You want to be a victim forever? Deny your victimhood. You will remain a victim forever because all of those memories of victimhood that are stored in your body are not going anywhere till you claim them, own them, and move them. So this is why the New Cage movement, I now call it the New Cage movement, is so deadly dangerous to all of us because of this bifurcation of spirituality and humanness. There is no division between these two things. Spirituality means reality. You want to be a spiritual being, be in all of it. You can't call yourself spiritual because you're a master meditator. That just means you're good at one thread of a very expanded weave and you've missed out on all the other aspects.
Yeah. Break that down. Go into the cage movement again. I know that's what you're saying, but just for people viewing.
Well, think about. Let's give some examples of the New Cage movement. Let's just some basic ideologies. No judgment. How ridiculous is that? No judgment. What? No distinction between unhealthy judgment and conscious discernment? I mean, what are we, idiots? Everything is okay and acceptable? Ridiculous. Your feelings are an illusion. My feelings are an illusion. They don't feel like an illusion to me. Your personal identifications aren't real. Sure, you don't want to become over-identified with an unhealthy personal identification, but your story is real. It lives in your bones, and in fact, your purpose will arise from your story. So Byron Katie's people reframing, upturning the story are helpful to an extent. Eckhart is helpful to an extent. We want to detach from getting lost and immersed in the belief that everything we think and everything we identify with is ultimately true. I get that. We need that perspective to pull back and reframe and turn it upside down. Then what? They don't know what to do next. What do you do next? You got to come back down into the story with a broader lens and perspective so you don't get trapped there, and you've got to work the feelings through and the memories through that you're holding, and empty them if they need to be emptied, and rage if you need to rage, and cry if you need to cry. Clear the vessel out so that joy can arise, new experiences can open, and you can get a glimpse of path and purpose. Endless examples of how the New Cage movement, the forgiveness bypass is so prominent and so dangerous. Forgiveness. We got people forgiving people who just shot them. This is ridiculous. I mean, allow yourself to go through a natural, organic, emotional process. And if at the end of it you arrive at forgiveness, great. Nobody's saying it's a bad thing. But don't think about it. Own your own victimhood. If you've been wounded, let yourself know it, feel it, move it. I'm not saying stay stuck there, but you're going to stay stuck there.
And also it's beautiful. Go in. Yeah, go on. You was going to say something, but go into the.
I can assure people that they are going to remain victims if they deny their victimhood. Because the moment you say that I wasn't sexually abused by whatever and pretend that it really didn't happen, or you really wanted it because on some level it was a karmic contract and you had something to learn from it, you may have something to learn from it, but don't, please. Go into the feeling body. Go into what it felt like that couldn't be expressed then. Reclaim. I call it the power of then. Forget the power of now. Nobody's ready for the now yet. Everybody's overcome by the holdings in the body from the past. Everyone I know, everybody I work with, the power of then is what's prominent. And telling people that the then isn't real, but that there's something called the now is real, is ridiculous. If you can't clear your prior debris, your consciousness remains right back where you stop processing and healing. And so the idea is, and the new cagers, and they're killing themselves, people. And I know I had a friend who didn't. We talked about that last year, and I can talk about it forever. Because I think it's important to keep talking about with people who are buying into these mantras, and then their shadow comes, the depression comes, and they don't know what to do with it anymore because they've been convinced it's not real. Well, it's real because it killed them. That's how real it is.
Yeah. So let's just hold fire there for a second and just go into some of that, because what's beautiful and what you do, is many people that watched our last conversation, and I see that they come around and they look at, the different perspective that you've been bringing, and it also resonates with people because people have also gone into certain modalities, whether it be, like you said, the karmic thing, the forgiveness, the power of now, or Byron Katie or anybody else about story. That's where I've been. I went, and the reason why I want to bring this up, because I also want to say, I know you're saying it's ridiculous, and I hear that, and I know you're covering, you're saying that it's a tool, and I just want to say to people as well that there's a lot of people out there that have, including myself, that the exploration into the power of now, or some of Byron Katie's work, etc., the story, the letting go, and so on, was a great tool for me to actually.
I agree. No. Listen, I did a lot of detachment work, and detachment saved me. I needed to understand that the thing I was doing internally all the time wasn't the only way to do it. Yeah. I needed to know there's a vaster perspective and lens. But then what? I'm talking about after that. I'm with you. Absolutely witness the pain body, pretend it's over there and not inside of you. Do the story reframe, so what my mother told me that I keep saying isn't absolutely true. Upside down it, turn it around, relanguage it, reframe it, recharacterize it, all of that. But then what? You've got to come back down into this temple and heal this temple. Yeah. And reframing and upframing and falsifying and bypassing is going to kill you. It's going to cancer you. It's going to destroy you. And that's what happens, is all this repressed. We shallow our breath because we don't want to feel deeply into our bodies. That's what head trippers do. And then all of a sudden the body's not alive anymore. So this is one example of it. So I honor those teachers who offer a tool. I dishonor them when they pretend it's more than a tool, because that's when the destruction starts to happen.
Yeah, and that's a key point. That's a key point as well, because that's what I was gonna just say at the end of that, is that if you don't get caught up, because we talk about detachment, but if you don't get caught up thinking that this is it, and I now know something, because as you've begun the conversation, we're talking that the opening is, we're talking about that most people are in the then. I like that, the power of then. I haven't heard that before. Most people are in the then. Most people are, as we know, if anybody watching this you just got to look, just go down the road and look how people are in their bodies. I mean, you know, any event I go to, people are just stiff, they can't move, they can't stretch, you see them in the streets, they can only walk. If you get somebody just all of a sudden jump and do a dance move, and so most of them are pull a muscle, and I'm saying that with jest, but genuinely, the essence of the body, and one of the things that I found, Jeff, was just dance. You know, 5 Rhythms dance was one great meditative way of me really shaking, and then I got into shaking and anger release and so on, and this stuff was really just took, and he's still doing this. This is still something I'm doing. I'm by no means finished. You know, it's using anger release, shaking, screaming, punching the pillow, like you said. Taking it into that place where you can actually, release the emotion that's caught in there. And like you beautifully said as well, I think this is really key for people listening, is to integrate it. So you mentioned rape or victimhood of any kind, is to really, how to embrace that and integrate it. And one of the things that I've been doing, Jeff, and tell me if I'm digressing here, but is that these, like you said, meditation, these different tools, but for people to first be able to go into the body, and I think me and Philip might have spoke a bit about this, but speaking what's happening in the body. So communicate, first of all, where there's tension in the body, what's happening. And then when we even are aware that the body is tight, you know, and there's a whole heap of stuff going on, because most people don't even listen to the body, then how to move that into emotional release through what you're saying, which is movement, right?
Well, it can be a lot of those things. I mean, the problem is people often go get a runner's high or something, and they dissipate what needs to move on an emotional level. So it wants to move emotionally. It wants to move contextually in relation to the events, experiences, memories of whatever's happened in your life. And you know, if we had chambers on every street corner in urban centers where people could go in and put in $5 and just bash the foam cube for 5 minutes and go back to work, you know, a little grounding at the end so they don't channel it in the wrong directions. But I think this would be a good thing. And, you know, when I asked Alexander, because basically you have a bunch of people tightly, anxiously holding themselves together, and how, you know, it's like, how do you feel after a good cry? You feel more present. How do you feel after a good expression of something you're angry at? You feel more present. I mean, it's not that complicated, actually. Yeah. It's basic animalism in the body. You know, I remember working with Alexander Lowen in Bio and saying to him, what is spirituality? This words. He said, oh, you know, he thought it was funny, right? He said, spirituality is when you enliven and clear your body so that you're actually a spirited being. That's spirituality. And now you have an open system as a portal to take in experience, to be aware and present, to connect to unity, to find your boundary in the heart of it, all of that. And for many of us who are just walking around completely holding on to all kinds of things, how many men on this planet have cried finally for the first time in their life 30 seconds before they die because they know it's safe enough that they're leaving soon that they don't have to actually remain vulnerable. I have a cousin who can't even say the word vulnerable. He calls it vulnerable. It's like he just doesn't want to fully embody the language. He's a very intelligent guy. It's not an intelligence issue. So, you know, it's like, what is it that we can't create a world that's authentically heart-centered and release-focused? You know, I have this post I put up on Facebook sometimes. It goes crazy on my fan page, and it's about Kleenex or tissue. It's about, you know, I had this experience. I saw this person crying, and they looked like they were just releasing in a mall, you know, and then someone comes over and hands the Kleenex. Immediately, it shuts it down. The Kleenex, it's like a repressor. Now, people get upset because a lot of them like when someone hands them a Kleenex, they feel comforted. So it's complicated. But my point was, and I learned this in body-centered psych, we stopped giving each other Kleenex because they had so much charge around it as a repressor. The moment that Kleenex is handed, you blow your nose, you cover yourself up, and you stop snotting all over yourself. Yeah. And as a result, the pain remains trapped in your body. So how can we create a world where it's okay to release? I don't mean hurting people releasing. And if we do it in a healthy, organic way, people will stop hurting the wrong people. I mean, all these crazy killers are taking their stuff out on the wrong people. They're angry about something. They just aren't invited to channel it in a healthy way. So I think we better do it soon.
Yeah, but this is a really key point, because what also has happened is I've often done sharing circles and people have cried, and exactly what you just said. The minute somebody cries or is in a release, we seem to have an inbuilt mechanism that wants to stop it because it's not nice. Right? I can't, like, I don't want to see, and I've often said in the sharing circle, I always say to people, sometimes I forget and it happens. And often what I say is, if somebody's having an experience, whatever it is, you're just holding a space here. You're listening and you're being here for them, is giving them a safe space to release. You don't need to break the circle and go and hug them and hold them, because you're holding them by giving them the space to release. You see the difference in that? It's completely different, because the minute, like you said, the minute that somebody goes to them, they think that, oh, I must have to stop. Yeah, I should stop. Yeah, this is silly. I shouldn't be crying. Why am I crying? You know, why am I crying about this stuff? You know, okay, yeah, I'll stop crying. I'm sorry, everybody, and it instantly closes it off. So what you're saying is really beautiful, and I want to say to people listening as well, is just to the viewers, the beautiful viewers out there, is that these talks are about, this is part of the process of sharing. These talks are about that one step of emotionally releasing. How can we create safe spaces, as Jeff said, and as I've experienced, it's much simpler than we think. This opportunity to release and come together and connect and just create beautiful safe spaces where it's okay to release is much simpler than we think. You want to speak a little bit to that, Jeff?
Well, you know, I have a foam cube in my house and a baseball bat, and today I really feel like I need to hit it after we get off the show, because I'm getting all pissed off about the new cage movement again. So clearly, we can film it. I mean, clearly I haven't discharged enough of this material yet, and I know that's actually really true. And there's a scene in my movie Karmageddon where I put the guru's picture on the cube and I shred the picture with the bat, and you know, that was a very healthy release moment for me. And why don't we have this in schoolyards, in classrooms, as a way of teaching children who are certainly not taught this in their homes, how to move their material and in a way that allows them to feel naturally, organically cleansed without having to punch out Billy in the schoolyard because they got anger and they don't even know where the hell it's coming from. I mean, this not knowing what we're feeling, not knowing where it's coming from, and not knowing how to move it is a big part of the problem. So that's one of the simple ways. That's what, just I want to go back to the original point in terms of hugging. What we started to develop a practice in some circles, which was to let the crier state what they needed. Because some people, if they feel comforted, will cry more. Other people will stop crying. So you just let them know that you're there for them in whatever form they need it, and that they have to articulate in written form or hand sign some single symbol or signal to let us know what they needed. And I think that's really the way I want to say that.
That's lovely. That's lovely. That you just given me. Actually, that's beautiful, because you've just given me that's an option that I can actually present at the beginning of a circle. I haven't, or normally I just say allow people to have that space and honor it. You know, a few times it's happened, and it's not like I've gone, hey, don't do it, you know, but a few times. But actually, what you're saying is beautiful. Is that if somebody does have an emotional release, then the offer will be, what do they need? I can totally take that on board. That's beautiful.
Well, and you think of some people who've been so isolated in their suffering forever and are crying in their suffering forever alone and never feeling like anybody gives a shit. So you create that opportunity. They can say, give me Kleenex, and maybe they'll cry more. I mean, that's why people, the way I wrote it was a bit like a gadfly, like very one-sided post. So, of course, people said, wait a minute, I love when people give me Kleenex. I feel loved. So I think this is the answer. We let people tell us what they want and need, and in a way that serves the release and the resolutional process, and then it's all good.
But let's also say there as well, Jeff, is that in my experience, the hardest thing at the moment as well, sometimes I get a bit like, I don't know if we are evolving, and sometimes I think it's still quite archaic, but most people don't know, no matter what they want. So it's like when I'm meeting people in workshops and the work that I'm doing as well, is that, just that question of like, what do you know, because I want us to go, first of all, I think I want us to go into relationship, because, we're going to talk about also that conscious relationship, but like, what do you want? When you meet people in relationship, they very rarely know what they want. They're so mixed up and confused, they don't know how to ask for what they want. Then when we start talking about even intimacy and that deeper connection, most people have lost their complete connection to their touch, their sensitivity, how they want to be touched, caressed, what they want, what makes them tick, if they can even ask for what they want.
I mean, as much as I believe very deeply in making relationship conscious, I do often have this question, which is, are we really realistically at this stage of human development at a conscious relationship stage when it's all that most people can do to manage and identify their own personal material and work through it? I mean, so, you know, sometimes I feel like this energy we put around like we're a failure if we can't find the partner and it falls apart. It feels like we're a success just for having tried at this stage of human awareness. I mean, really, and, you know, and maybe we just need to stop walking around feeling beaten down by the defeats of relationship when it's like we're trying something that most of us can barely manage any of it. I mean, we don't even know what we feel, for Christ's sakes, you know. And at the same time, I get that we need to heal our inability to relate consciously in relationships. So it's this funny, twisted irony. You know, we keep trying and we keep getting whacked, and yet we have to keep trying. And, you know, maybe it's just about sort of selective attachment and moving in at the right moment and the right time and developing a little bit of an awareness of where you're at in your journey and your process. But these concepts are not day-to-day concepts in the world. I mean, the dude driving around in his car going to work is not really thinking about this, what we're talking about, Simon. Yeah. So conscious relationships feels like a very nuanced thing that I know we're starting to talk about it, but I think we've got a long way to go.
I think it's time. What would be lovely, I think, is if you go and bash the thing and let out a bit of the cage movement. I'll bash the pillow here, and then we'll show up again and see what arises. Do you fancy that?
Yeah, I think for now we're making progress finally.
Absolutely. What are you going to show us what you actually hit?
Oh no, it's in another room. It's just a big foam cube that sits on the ground. It's about that big, and it's about.
But I do this. I do this.
Great, fantastic. Fantastic. Listen, we can do another show where we just do release practices, because I actually think that's what the world needs most of all. Alexander, no, I mean it. I'd love to do it. I need the release. I'm not doing it for them. I'm doing it for me. Alexander Lowen has this wonderful bioenergetic exercise manual. You can buy it used on Amazon. He's got all kinds of exercises for opening and releasing and reintegrating the body. And you know, the problem is that, and you know this, that if we've been closed for a long time, living in a really overstimulating world or vibration under a lot of pressure, opening is painful. I mean, this is, you know, you're opening to feelings at first of great discomfort quite often. And so there's a reason people close. And in this overstimulated, unconscious, media-dominated world, sometimes I understand why they detach. I mean, it's, you know, I've used detachment. I used to enjoy a good Bailey's Irish Cream now and then, some hard liquor, so I could detach from my emotional body.
Yeah, I was detaching for 15 years.
Got it. Well, you know, here we are. I mean, if we talk about unity as a relative concept, we're all detaching all the time. It's just a matter of degree. I mean, you know, what does it feel like to be fully, completely, vibrationally open and alive? How many of us have experienced that even in a lifetime? You know?
I mean, like you said something lovely. You said something lovely a moment ago. Is that the fact that we're even having this conversation gives us maybe just a little sample of what it feels like to even consider what it means to open. And I think that excites me as well, though, Jeff, because I know when you talk, sometimes I feel because you're powerful, but also I feel you're angry, yeah, sometimes, and I know you are, and you say that, and I know you're not stating that you're not angry, but then I know that you write and you share and you've connected to an opening multiple times of the love and so on, and so sometimes what you say is, for people listening as well, sometimes what you say is that it feels that there isn't hope, but you feel there's some hope, right?
I mean, I'm a hardcore optimist. You know, I've always have been. I overcame everything because I believed that I could find a better way or a more purposeful way in a healthier, more loving environment. Absolutely, I do. I think sometimes I swing like a gadfly a little farther, you know, because I want to, for example, make the point that we need to stop beating ourselves up when we can't always succeed in a relationship because we're not at a stage in human development where relationship is yet easy. I don't want that to sound like I'm cynical about the possibility about creating a lovely relationship. I'm creating one myself. So it is viable and doable, but at the same time, I think we have to just be realistic about what's possible and what the pinnacle of possibility is and all of that, because you have so many people walking around not in union or partnership feeling badly about themselves. I mean, quite apart from the question of whether we're real good at this yet, and we're mostly not, as humans, and where this is the context, this is the nest that we're in, the reality is it may not be fundamental to everybody's essential purpose and path to be in conscious love relationship. I mean, some people are here to do other work on this planet, and if they just find it and love it and feel at peace with path, it's perfect. It's just like that. And so I just want to take the heat off of everybody. We're in something together here, which is a sociological context, stages of development, and we need to understand that, just as the genders need to understand where men came from, what the origins of that behavior were, and women as well, so that we stop hating each other and start communing with each other on the basis of we're doing the best that we can do given where we come from, and let's understand that and see that in each other. So not just that I look at you in the street and go, wow, there's a beautiful beam of sacred purpose-inspired magnificence, look at the divinity in Simon's beautiful eyes, all that, but I also go, hey, there's a fellow human who's struggling with the challenges to be alive on this planet at this stage of development with the limited tools that we have to know what consciousness is. Right. So let's like chill out and give each other a hug and go, good going, buddy. Let's go get a beer, and we're doing our best, and we're not going to get to the perfect place in this lifetime. And, you know, and not as an excuse to not try to grow forward, but so that we are realistic and stop shaming ourselves because we can't get where we think that other spiritual guy got, and I assure you, he probably never got there anyway.
And also, ultimately, is there really anywhere to get other than here? And I know we're not talking. I know you're not saying it's about the power now, but ultimately, when we actually do embrace that, that there's nowhere to get, then we can actually be here and hug you and say, hey, dude, all is well. I can see you. This is some of the views I have on reality. You know, where are you coming from?
Well, you know, for me, it's this trying to strike this very fascinating balance between we're perfect just as we are right here, right now, and I have all this purpose and passion inside of me that wants to be expressed, and to the extent that I express it, I feel like a more complete, actualized person. And I really don't know how to reconcile those two polarized experiences yet.
Beautiful. Beautiful, because that's the conversation I've had with a number of people, Jeff, is that because when you do put that out there to people, like, you're magnificent as you are, you don't need to do anything, you don't need fixing, you don't need healing, people sometimes go, man, I think I've got some serious work to do.
No, exactly. So think of this as what I call Western consciousness, the wisdom of the East and the wisdom of the West. So the East is like this quest for unity, consciousness, all oneness, and the Western emphasis is on finding your path, healthy self-concept, healthy ego, finding your individual purpose, your magnificent purpose in this giant ocean of meaning. So finding that exact point where you don't think you're all that, but you think you're pretty special, and you know you're part of a unified field, and you're here for a minute and then you're gone, and at the same time you are a magnificent beam of light that can really do great work to transform the world and actualize your consciousness. That's a lot to hold. And, you know, if we go too far towards unity without a self, we have an unboundaried self that never honors its gifts. If we go too far in the direction of just do it, pumped up, go for it, whatever, then we think we're all that, and we don't know we're part of a unified field. So for me, the work is to find where Western consciousness meets, where the wisdom of the West and the wisdom of we see the downside. The New Age movement is the East, is the unity consciousness notions of spirituality that are turned upside down. And narcissism is the emphasis on the self-container in Western psychology and pop psychology gone too far. So I always try to find the place right in the heart of it, and that's the work.
Yeah, yeah, and it was I was listening to somebody the other day saying as well that, which I think this is what we're all feeling, and I don't know, I'm sure you're familiar with Charles Eisenstein, but again, it's that that's also that element of in between stories. We are moving through a huge time at the moment where we have got so much information coming at us, and I was just listening to an audio just yesterday. They were pretty much breaking down that, even a lot of the sciences and the philosophy and the psychology that we've all been given and to some extent embraced as if that was us and was reality and was who we are, is also being now uncovered as like, well, actually that was a load of rubbish. We tried something out. It's not actually it's not actually like that. And if we go back to like the Teslas and different people and start looking at different sciences, there's a new wave of information coming full circle from psychologists and philosophers and science and like Noam Chomsky and a lot of these people that are bringing through a whole new way of being. So we're actually the sort of the layman on the street, the man on the street. We're the last person to even get affected by that.
Right. I mean, we're at the beginning of the transition from survivalism to authenticity. That's how I think of it. We're having the conversation. I'm at the stage where it's all I can do to make my armoring process conscious. So I notice when I need my armor, and I notice when I can take my armor off. That's such a preliminary stage on the authenticity bridge. And the day-to-day people, I'm not sure this idea of stories overwhelming, coming at them, reframing, is really of any particular significance. I feel like we have hundreds of years to go before that's integrated, so long as we survive the madness, right?
Right. So, okay, well, wow, beautiful. So, yeah, I suppose as a rounding off, I mean, there's so much there. It's a wonderful conversation as always. There was, yeah. Let's round off and say, which is pretty much what you said a moment ago, is that what does people require? They require, you said something lovely, that getting together and bashing the pillow, banging the telephone box, etc. Releasing, coming together in real authentic spaces right now, so that people feel supported, listened, right, held, heard, and
right. There's no shame in being human, right? I mean, right. We really got to understand that there is no shame in being human. So we know what happens when someone shares their story and someone goes, "Wow, I had a similar experience." It's this bridge is formed that's so beautiful, and I really want to move, if we can move in the direction of just embracing each other's humanness, that is, without templating and projecting onto one another some perfected vision of possibility that we may not get to in this lifetime or in many, many centuries. And, not that we're going to accept every unacceptable thing. That has to be called out too. That's the other part of it. But at the same time, just to go, hey man, it is tough to be a dude right now because, like, I'm trying to open, and then when I open, I can't handle the edgy marketplace anymore and make a living, and I'm like, women want me to open, but if I open too much, they're not turned on by me anymore, and like, this is confusing, and just stay there and share in that confusion for a moment.
Yeah, that is for me, that's the transparency. Show up and just feel safe enough to share it all. And actually, that's, you said your cousin couldn't say it, but that in that vulnerability as well, we actually don't lose ourselves. We actually find a much more deeper, grounded, beautiful essence of ourselves. Or that's been my experience. Is that whenever women have held a circle for me, or men have listened to my tears or vulnerability, then I've only felt stronger after.
Well, you're doing it in conscious circles. I mean, if you do it at the donut shop, you may not have that reaction. Vulnerability is not safe for everybody everywhere on this crazy planet. So we have to be conscious about who and where we open to, And, you know, guys like you and I got to keep getting out there, awakening men, certainly not awakened, and let the feminine know, for example, that we're becoming, if we haven't already become, a safe place for them to share their experience without getting objectified or bashed or whatever our trip is. And, you know, and just to come back to this idea, and I really love it when I can meet someone in human context and not just focus on our individual trip, but go, wow, it is tough to be human and to struggle with this question with these limited tools at this stage of human development. There's a communal piece in that. There's a man, you're driving along, I'm driving along, maybe in 300 years they won't be driving, they'll be doing something healthier, more organic as a form of transport. We're in this context bubble together, we're limited by it together. Let's really connect in that limitation and realize there are other ways of being that we may not get to and that we can explore if we can, but that part of it has to do with the development of humanity. And, you know, and it helps me sometimes because I'm trying to do everything so perfectly, and then I go, oh, dude, I mean, seriously, all of, you know, without support in some ways, and it's too much. It's too much for one being, one being, to do so much to upturn all the madness of the generations before. Yeah. You know, and if we can just get a few things better and integrate and sustain it, that's a real improvement instead of jumping and splashing in a bunch of places and not integrating the transformation. So I'm working on that so that I'm like enough already. You know, I can't do it all.
No, it's lovely, and it is also, it's actually nicer when you bring it back to this self anyway, because at least we know where we are right here. You know, if you go outward too much, it just gets too damn hectic, crazy, and confusing. At least if we come back here and we actually do the work on ourselves, which is what you spoke about last year as well, was just that not spiritual bypassing, but going into which we spoke about again tonight, going into the wound, going in and doing the work yourself. You know, finding the people around you that can support you and you support them, and that really is that's the basis for real transformation in the time that we're alive. There's one thing that I want to comment on and just say, you know, thank you as well, because a lot of people have commented on your talk, and you know, and that you do show up in that vulnerable place, and you do show up, and yes, you share your anger, and yes, you throw in, you flip concepts upside down, but also I get a sense that you're flipping them upside down and not just coming from a place like Jeff knows. You're saying that it's like nobody knows. We're here uncovering and learning together, and that's key, because we're in that place where if we get too rigid, I'm just speaking to the people listening as well, Jeff, if we get too rigid on what we think we know, we're not allowing the openness of something beyond.
Yeah, that's right. And you know, these views, I wouldn't have had them 5 years ago. I mean, this is, you know, what I'm articulating really is a function of my own inquiry. And, you know, when I'm working on a book, I'm really growing into a lens and growing through frameworks and trying to find my way to the next one. So, you know, it's not I never ever feel like I've got anything really figured out. I feel like I've got a little more of it figured out, but I'm not really interested in thinking. I don't egoically need to feel like I've got the answer or something. I just am not interested. It's just too much pressure, and I'm convinced that if you reach that stage, they take you away, and I'm not ready to leave. I like duality. I'm having an okay time here, you know.
Wonderful, 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 wonderful. Okay, let's. Is there absolute? You know, I may not speak to you for a year. Who knows? The book's coming out. Is there, on this conversation that we're putting out there to the world for people to enjoy, to listen to, and there's so much there for them today, is there anything you would like to finalize with? Please, obviously, just share I know you've got your own press, enrealment.com now, but please, just, you know, but not just I know you're not about promoting stuff, but in general, is there anything that you'd like to seal this, this conversation off with?
I don't know. Not one thing. You know, I mean, I think this emphasis, as we have our anniversary show, Simon, this emphasis on humanizing our expectations, that's a shift for me from a year ago. I was still hard on other and myself, and it's always the same thing. And I think I'm softening those edges a little bit, and you know, to allow ourselves to do the work, but to have a realistic idea of how much, you know, how different can I be from my grandfather in only 2 generations, and to, you know, move like that. I think I'm getting older. I'm developing more humane, realistic expectations for myself and for other people also. So yeah, I think that's it. In terms of the other stuff, you know, in realman.com, I formed a publishing house. I am publishing other authors. A beautiful poet named Susan Freibert, her poetry book Hope is a Traveler is up on Amazon. It's gorgeous. She wrote a piece called Empathy that was up on Elephant Journal that's beautiful, and her writing is the love writing in my book, An Uncommon Bond. She's the female writer, poet, lover character. It's her writing, and I invite people to check the book out. I think it's quite a unique book experience. I have a love dictionary at the back of it with wound mates, love elders, even a sexy term called cuddle lingus, all that kind of crazy stuff. So I had fun with the book a little bit. It's sexy and it's fun and it's clever, and it's, you know, if nothing else, people will talk about it. And I think that really, you know, igniting conversation, it's like twin flames, you know, all these terms, an uncommon bond. I don't even like the terms that much. I just think we just need to stop characterizing and just start talking about what our experience is, and because I don't think we're at the stage where we even know how to characterize things fully yet, especially in the love terrain. So yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Just as you were speaking, I was, we could have gone all over the place there. I know we just, wherever we go on the sofa is where we go. So I really thank you for your time and energy. Yeah, and underneath the video, everybody, there will be the link, as always, to explore more of Jeff's work and go over and check out Uncommon Bond. You can order that book now, pre-order through unrealman.com. And
Amazon. It's on Amazon.
It's on Amazon for pre-order.
It's just up on Amazon Friday. Yeah.
Okay, super. Okay, so you can order it on Amazon as well. Links will be under this video, and go over to Jeff's website. I just want to say to you guys out there listening, to the live viewers, hello. Thank you for being here with us, and to everybody that will listen to this video whenever you get it, whenever you come across it, however it comes into your consciousness, is the fact that you've listened with us for an hour. I want to honor your time. I want to say that there's so much information out there now, as you're quite aware of, and to come over and listen to me and Jeff today is a real gift to us as well, because it gives us the opportunity to create a space, a safe space where we can all come together and dive in and explore and show up and be you know, an expression of ourselves right now, and really to share that these conversations are about supporting that we're all in this together. And Jeff's mentioned this tonight a few times, but we are all in this together. It's not it's not just about you know, me or Jeff or anybody else. No, it's that we are in this together, and you're in it together with the people around you. So yeah, let's be a little bit more aware of that, and bring that in. You know, create little gatherings at home. You know, create little sacred spaces in your own home and invite people around, and just pose a question or a conversation. Just throw it out there. Say, hey guys, we just want to talk about this tonight, and open a discussion of whatever might be on your mind right now. It's just a real simple way of connecting. And me and Jeff are going to come together and do some bashing, right?
Yes, we are.
We will do that. We'll arrange that and come back to you all soon. So thank you for being here, wherever you are in the planet. Take care. You're amazing. In my eyes, you're a miracle, because I'm a miracle. We're just dancing in this mad, super cosmic juice. And please share if you enjoyed it, and we'll see you. Well, we'll see you when we see you. Take care. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you, everybody.